Welcome back to the Ride and Laugh podcast. If you love mountain biking, you are in the right place. Picture that last group ride you did with a bunch of friends and the stoke is high. You're back in the parking lot. You're talking bikes, fitness, nutrition, gear. And that's what we do here every episode of Ride and Laugh. We love bikes. You love bikes. Let's talk about it. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you today?
Yo, man, that music, that opening music, it just gets me so hyped. Every time I hear it, I'm just like, yes. I'm doing so good. Yeah, stoked.
I agree. We've done enough podcasts now where we have this kind of random music that we picked for the beginning, and when I hear it, it's just like, yeah, start grooving. I'm like, ooh, we're going to be talking bikes for the next 45 minutes to an hour. Life is good. Let's get into it. We had an awesome ride at the Frederick Watershed in February, which is the winter in the Northeast, and we had some snow, but we made the best of it, and we ended up really like kind of progressing and just having a great time. What was the Frederick ride like?
Well, we picked Frederick because we thought there wasn't going to be any snow, and the ride up was great. Like, there was no snow. Yeah. Then the minute we started climbing up the trail, probably about like 500 feet or so up, we started seeing snow. By the time we got to the top, I mean, it was just real. It was snow covered, and I think the three of us, because we were stick as well, and we just kind of got bummed out a little bit. But you know what? We're like, you know what? Let's make the best of it. It's a trip. You know, we're riding bikes. It can't be that bad. So we started, you know, just playing around in the snow. And I think what we ended up doing was we hit one of the black downhill trails. I think it's called Albatross. And probably about 100 feet down the trail, the snow disappeared. And we ended up just ripping this thing. And I think we all finished that Albatross trail and we're like, I think we can go do Wayne's. And so, yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, the progression. I mean, I have a video on Wayne's Trail, so if you want to see what it's like, definitely check it out. But it's basically a blue, and I'm throwing up air quotes right now because it's not a blue trail. These gaps are definitely a black level jumps.
Optional.
I mean, if you miss
optional gaps,
yes,
that's why it's blue.
Optional. Yeah. But if you miss and you case, I mean, it's bad news bears. There's no soft case. Yeah. And you know, the three of us, all three of us got every single jump. It was just such an amazing day.
Yeah, we're guys who really kind of learned and are learning how to jump in our 40s. You know, we're in our upper 40s now. And as an adult learning how to jump, it's a whole new thing. So we get very excited when we start clearing jumps and start clearing them with confidence. So we did that first like test run. And I think there was 5 jumps in total, and we did the first like 3 or 4 of them, which we weren't even going to do, and everything just felt fine. Like the snow wasn't a problem, and but your confidence in taking a look at these and saying, "Yes, we got this." You know, I certainly you felt like you had it. You wouldn't have pressured anyone else to do it, but you started hitting them, you started sessioning them, and we all just went after you.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned earlier that, you know, we're in our late 40s, we're learning every day. And I think it's really interesting that you were doing a little bit of nutrition learning because you had done that whole ride on just steak and eggs, which is, if you were tuning in because of what you saw the title was, this is about nutrition. And yeah, we have a lot of interesting takes on nutrition. And like I said, Dan and Stick, actually both of you guys were doing this entire ride on just steak and eggs.
Yeah. So this is the nutrition podcast. This is the first nutrition podcast. We'll certainly do more, especially depending on what the feedback is. And we're just going to touch on some of these topics. A couple of things that Sage and I do that we're pretty passionate about because it's worked really, really well for us. And so we want to get the word out and share that with the world and other riders. The steak and eggs, I'm doing experiments. I'm always doing experiments. Sage is always trying different things, and we've lassoed Stick into it. Not because Stick is like, I want to try doing something. It's because you guys are really strong riders, and I want to keep up. And you guys have found a way to like maintain a good weight and good muscle mass and be strong. And so he wants in. And we want, if you're interested in this, then we want you to want in. And if you want in, we'll let you in. So, Picture how you want to feel on the bike. Picture how this is what we've been doing on this podcast, right? We're talking about visualization. How do you want to feel on the bike? How do you want to feel on a climb? How do you want to feel on a downhill? How do you want your body to feel? Do you want that strength? You want core strength and your forearms to be strong. You don't want to get the hand pump, and you don't want your quads to light up, and you want to be flexible. And if you fall, you want to be strong and resilient. You want to have strong bones. You want to be a healthy, strong rider. You want to be lightweight, but still strong, because we're mountain bikers. So if you picture how you want to feel and picture how you want to look, then that'll start to kind of manifest the type of rider that you're going to be. And the main thing that we talk about is being open-minded in this case when we're talking about nutrition. So the experiment that I did with steak and eggs, that's a super, super low carb. That's carnivore. And that's an incredibly low carb diet, obviously. Basically zero carb. I mean, you're talking about 6 to 8 carbs a day. So it's basically zero. And most people that are in the cycling and mountain bike world are, for lack of a better term, sugar burners. There's 2 systems that we can burn. There's sugar and fat. And so they're sugar burners. And so doing something like that seems kind of foreign. But this is being fat adapted athletes is something that Sage and I have been working on and playing with for a lot of years. And we've had some really, really cool and interesting results. So Sage, what's your experience? Because Sage is not low carb, and I'm not usually that low carb. The carnivore was interesting. And by the way, I felt really good on it after a couple of weeks. It did take even more time to adapt, but it was very, very interesting. And I think it has its place. But Sage, tell us a little bit about what you eat and your journey from what you did eat to thinking, this isn't working for me, I'm open to another way.
Yeah, basically I'm OMAD, which is 1 meal a day. And I just kind of happened to fall into it. I never used to eat breakfast. Breakfast was never a big thing for me, but I used to always have lunch and dinner. And because I was working with my father and he had basically house and business all in one. So my mom and my dad kind of lived on the first floor. And because of that, she would always make me lunch. Well, a few years ago, my mom passed away, and, obviously I'm not getting lunch anymore. And I just, out of sheer laziness, I guess, I just kind of foregoed the lunch and nothing else in my life changed. I was still doing these big rides, but I was doing them with
very
just
American of you, by the way. It was a very American move to be so lazy that you stop eating lunch. However, it's also anti-American because we like to eat. So, there was a cultural war going on there within yourself. I don't feel like eating, but I love food. Yeah.
I definitely, but you know what, for that 1 meal though, I pack it in. Like I definitely feast big time. And it did take me a while and to get used to this. And I think that's kind of what we want to tell everybody is the things that we're going to be talking about today aren't things that you can just implement and just see an immediate change. They take time. For me, it took me several months to kind of figure that out. I didn't know that OMAD was actually a thing. I just did it. And, I was like, oh, you know what? I think I can actually do this. My body slowly adjusted, but I still, doing those hit rides and things like that. I did have to make some adjustments, but that took a while to get there. And that's a pretty big commitment. I'm not suggesting that you go OMAD right away, but it is something that I've been doing for at least 7 years now. It's worked incredibly well for me. I have a question for you though, Danny. When you did the steak and eggs, are you eating anything during the ride? Are you eating meat during the ride, or how's that work?
No. I don't eat during a ride. I don't eat before a ride. And I would eat steak and eggs twice a day. So I don't do OMAD. And I would eat a big giant steak. And steak and eggs is a fun way to say it, but it's really just kind of red meat. Could just be, and carnivore, you can use pretty much any kind of meat that you want to. So you could do ground beef, you can make burgers or meatballs, but it's an elimination diet. And when you eliminate the standard American diet, which is what almost everyone else is on, then you're cutting out so much processed foods. And that's really where Sage, you talked about not being able to make this change overnight, but you can make small changes, right? And some small changes would be to stop eating processed foods. There's a lot of evidence out there that the processed food industry doesn't want you to see. And gels and bars and recovery shakes, they're not good for you. They're not good for your microbiome. So even though you're burning off that sugar, it's still not good in your system. And we can eliminate those things by shifting the way that our bodies operate. And that's what Sage did when he did one meal a day. He unknowingly went into ketosis for the other 22 or 23 hours out of the day and became a fat burning machine. What were you eating before that? Now, you used to like famously eat before the ride. Where did you get the information that what you should be eating? What were you eating? And why did that finally stop?
I see where you're going with this. I embarrassingly ate a ton of sugar. I mean, I was one of those people that, if you stuck a spoon in the coffee cup, it would just stand straight up because there's so much sugar.
Yeah. I remember watching the sugar go into the coffee and just being like, oh my God, there's no coffee in there. And you used to say, I love coffee. And I was like, no, you actually don't know what coffee tastes like. Yeah. You love sugar. Yeah.
That's right.
And you have a little bit of coffee with the sugar.
Yeah, I definitely had a sugar addiction. I would gummies, another really weak one for me. I would take down a whole bag of these like gummy bears every night, and that was a big change for me. And I think what had happened was, and I think this is the story that you're getting at, is when I first started riding with Dan. This is going back, like 14, 16 years ago, right? We would go on these rides, and I would always end up like just fading. By the end of the ride, after 1 or 2 hours, my body would just start to fade and I would just not be able to produce any more power. And, Dan, if there's one thing about Danny you got to know is you don't mess with Danny's ride, like everything for Sunday. And, I'm fading every ride. And Dan's like, what are you eating before the ride? And, of course I'm eating these breakfast sandwiches from Wawa, all kinds of stuff. And you had very kindly suggested, why don't you not eat that and go for a ride and see how that works? And, I
don't know if I was that kind. I doubt I was that kind. I mean, I was probably pretty frustrated. I saw the food and I had known about, and Hammer Nutrition talked about this 3-hour window of not eating before a ride.
Yeah, that's right.
And I really liked the Hammer products. And I really liked the fact that they were saying, hey, we're selling supplements and we're saying not to eat anything before a ride. Now as soon as the ride started, they want you sucking down gels. So, that they are still a supplement company, but that 3-hour window kind of made sense to me, because I felt the same way. I thought that you had to fuel right before a ride. We had no idea. And I think most people really don't. Like there's just kind of this information in the ether floating around about what we're supposed to eat and drink before and after a ride. And a lot of that stuff might be provided even by research from the supplement companies. Like Gatorade's got a big research institution. I'm not going to believe anything coming from Gatorade, but nonetheless, I had read about this 3-hour window and I was telling you about it and you wouldn't do it. You kept, I kept seeing McDonald's wrappers in the car on the way up. So eventually I think we did that ride at Rattling Creek with Ron, and we had already done 2 or 3 of rides with these friends. And I knew Sage to be a strong rider, but he would have these moments where all too often his legs would just die and he couldn't keep up. And so I remember on that ride specifically, and you were just so frustrated and you were apologizing to Ron, and you probably should have been apologizing to me also because I was waiting, but about these dead legs. And so, that was probably a 3.5-hour drive back from there. And I'm sure I lectured you the whole time. Like, look, if you want to ride with me, then you got to figure this out. It wasn't even about health. It was just like, you got to figure this out, but you're a stronger rider than this. It shouldn't be happening. So
yeah. And it worked, Danny. I mean, I did after that conversation, I did. I tried a ride without eating before the ride, and it worked. And so because it worked, I was like, okay, well, let me try it again. And lo and behold, I'm finishing these rides and I'm feeling really good. I mean, that's not to say that like there wasn't like a withdrawal moment, like I had kind of built this routine up, in the morning. Okay, I get my coffee, and I get my breakfast sandwich, and I'm driving up to this whole routine built. So when you're changing that's tough, and that's another thing that we kind of want to cover in this episode is that it's about breaking routines, and that's not easy either. So for me, breaking that routine, that first, 10, 20 minutes, I'm kind of cursing at the world a little bit, like, oh man, I'm really hungry. The stomach's like growling. But then the minute you start getting into the ride, I kind of forgot about it. And so that was really encouraging, because I finished that ride really strong and I was willing to try it again. And now both you and I don't eat anything, right? I haven't seen you eat anything in quite some time, actually, before, during a ride. I mean,
before, during a ride? No. Yeah. I mean, we don't eat at all before a ride. I do all of my trainer rides completely fasted, and those can be pretty hard. And then we do all of our actual rides without any food. We do bring emergency gels, and maybe I have a bar in there. I mean, and we've looked at those gels and wondered if they expire, because we almost never take them. I mean, we buy a box of gels and it just sits in the cabinet. When's the last time? Maybe Virginia, when you needed one. Oh, I think in Arizona, because we rode 7 days in a row. I think I might have had a couple of gels on the ride at that point. Just we were burning way more calories than we could possibly put back in. But I've played around with different things. At one time, I was eating a lot of, if you remember, dried fruit. I was eating figs and dates and things like that on the trail. I wasn't as low carb, and ultimately, when I took those out and I was fat adapted, it didn't really matter. I didn't need that stuff. So you don't have to stop and eat. You just ride. Yeah,
but Dan, just so that the listeners know, like, these rides aren't like 2 hour rides. I mean, these are long rides. Our Sunday rides typically last anywhere between 3.5 to 5 hours. I mean, so we're pushing pretty hard, but it's also more full body, right? On the trainer, you're just focused on the legs, but when you're mountain biking, that's a full body workout. When you're doing that for 5 hours, and putting down, especially at Mount Penn, places like Mount Penn where it's just so technical, it's if my old self is looking at the new self, I'm thinking, you're crazy. Like, how are you going that long, without taking any food? And I'm still, to this day, it kind of baffles me that we're able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we have to keep in mind is that the human body is amazing.
Yeah,
you're amazing. Yeah. I'm amazing. Listener, you're amazing. Your body is incredible, and we can do so much more than we realize. From visualizing and clearing a jump or a feature or tech that we'd never gotten before, to changing the way that we eat, and that's going to affect you on and off the bike. And so if you're going to be it's going to make you a little bit healthier. It's going to make you a lot healthier if you're not ingesting sugar all the time. It's a big change. I mean, how hard was it to cut sugar out of your coffee? That's a huge thing. How hard was it to resist the urge to go and get that breakfast sandwich that you're looking forward to? Now that's part of your routine, the breakfast sandwich. And these are obstacles that you have to overcome. I mean, and then you had all that cream. You used to put all that artificial sweetened creamer in your coffee. Coffee. It was gradual, right? I think you stopped the sugar and then you stopped the creamer.
No, I went cold. I'm a cold turkey guy, and so
wow.
Yeah. I just cut everything. My wife at the time, I just said, please don't buy me any more gummies. The coffee, that was easy, because it wasn't easy to make that trend, but it was easy for me to just not put things into it. It took me about a week to like black coffee, and now I love it. Like, now I actually do like coffee, and we can honestly say that I like coffee. I drink it all day long. But yeah, it wasn't easy. And I'm not saying you have to go cold turkey. If you're someone that likes to gradually start to eliminate things, that's fine too. I happen to be a cold turkey guy.
Well, I want to point out to all the coffee sponsors out there that this podcast drinks a lot of coffee. We love coffee, and we don't put sugar in it. We drink black coffee. So if you got a good coffee, we will enjoy it. If it's not good, don't send it to us. But we will enjoy it. Now, I was addicted to coffee. I used to just drink 1 cup a day. And then after I broke my jaw, I didn't drink coffee when I was in the hospital. And then I just decided I'm not going to drink coffee every day anymore. And I just didn't want to be addicted to anything. But I still do drink it on Sundays after the ride. I still drink it on Sundays before the ride. I'll have a cup before the ride. So Sunday's my coffee day. So when you cut it out of the diet and then have it once or twice a week or once every a month or so, then it really actually kind of supercharges you. But I love coffee, and I'm not anti-coffee, so I'm not telling anyone to change their coffee habit. I would definitely recommend not putting in the artificial sweeteners and the artificial creamers, but a little real cream or milk, I think, is okay.
Yeah, you mentioned that, when you broke your face, you stopped coffee, but that's another advantage that you and I had seen about, like, let's be honest. I mean, you and I have gotten hurt quite a bit, and your recovery time, and this man, like, literally destroyed his entire face. We're talking, orbital fracture on the skull, both top and lower jaw, completely rebuilt. You came back from that so fast, so that there's the healing time, but then also we kind of experienced a lot of, like, we don't get sick, that's a huge advantage too, right?
Yeah. Well, from the healing end, you've also had your share of catastrophic injuries and come back really quickly. I broke my face. I had a completely different face. I was nowhere near as handsome before. I was like, Doc, can you, while you're in there, you're like, how about like a nice salt and pepper beard and maybe a nice scar on the head, and toughen me up a little bit. So
Harry Potter,
the boy who lived. The doctors did a great job. I have so much appreciation and gratitude for those doctors. If you need a face doctor, hit me up at RNL S1 I can send you a couple of recommendations. We do want to hear what you're doing nutritionally. So RNL1 or you can comment on the YouTube channel. We do want to hear what you've done, or if no one's talking about this. No one's talking about, not within the context of mountain biking. You can find a lot of cool information on keto. You can find a lot of cool information on carnivore. You can find a lot of cool information on low carb, and you can find information certainly on high carb as well. But there's not really anyone talking about this within the context of our sport. And so Sage and I have been experimenting with this for a lot of years. We've done a lot of the heavy lifting for you already. Like, does this even work? So you don't have to waste your time getting fat adapted if it's not going to give you any benefit. We've proven, it's anecdotally because it's just the two of us, but we've proven it. And so going back to your point about recovery, so I was off the bike for probably 2 months. I lost about 17 pounds of muscle from just sitting around in hospital beds. I had 2 surgeries, and then I was on my couch for a long time recovering. I had my jaw wired shut. I had a bone infection. It was really bad. And that was less than a year ago. And I feel like I'm fully back. I mean, do you notice a difference when we're out on the trails at this point in my fitness?
No, you are really strong on the bike. I mean, it's incredible how fast you came back from that.
And I've noted the same thing when you went out with your injuries and then you were given the green light, and listeners, tell us about your recoveries. I mean, mountain bikers, we are chomping at the bit to get back. My doctors had to like really restrain me, and it didn't even work. I was cheating and getting on the trainer. Remember that first trainer ride I did? You saw it on Strava right away, and he texted me as soon as it was over. What was the text? It was like, too much. And then my wife's getting in touch with him. She's like, what is he doing? And his face was beet red, and so I had to promise my wife that Sage was going to monitor my rides because I was going too hard. I wanted it back all at once, but I did get there eventually, and you got there, and we came back really quickly and really strong. I feel my FTP is almost back to where it was before I got injured, and my power to weight ratio is even better because I lost all that weight and I didn't gain it all back. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, there's just a lot of benefits to becoming a fat adapted athlete and not needing to take these supplements and these gels and the food. And what about the energy throughout the day and throughout the ride and the mental sharpness as well that when you're getting to a feature, or if you're at a bike park and we've ridden bike parks 7, 8, 9 hours, no food, just water. We do take in electrolytes. We take in a fair amount of electrolytes, which is just everything that you like would sweat out. A lot of times it's unflavored, but we take some flavored ones into, or I do. Sage doesn't. But talk a little bit about that, about the energy that the type of energy that you get from eating this way.
You know what? That's probably the one question that I get the most from people when I tell people I'm OMAD, and they're like, "What? How are you?" I think most people think that, oh, there's no way that you can produce power without taking in carbs. That's been the theme, ever since you were young. Let's carb up, before and then even when you're watching, all these races,
carb up the day before, right? A big spaghetti dinner the day before a big ride. I remember doing the bike to the city to shore ride in Philadelphia. It was like a cancer fundraiser. And it was a big spaghetti dinner. We went over to someone's house and had a big giant spaghetti dinner because we all needed our carbs right before the ride. Yeah, it's definitely just like really entrenched in the ether of sports, is to carb up.
Yeah, I mean, I see it during the ride too. Like most of the people that obviously we ride with aren't doing, fat adapted rides, and so we're watching all the people that we ride with. They're just slamming gels every 30 minutes or an hour. And it's like, I'm not experiencing any kind of energy drop at all. In fact, I'm probably in the best shape of my life at 46. I can confidently say that I would be beating the pants off of my 30 and 20-year-old self. In fact, because you and I do Strava, we have the luxury of being able to go back to our rides and be able to see it. And I can see the numbers, I'm not weaker, I'm stronger, and it's unbelievable. You had mentioned power to weight. One of the reasons why most people do the OMAD or the intermittent fasting is to lose weight. I'm kind of past that point now. I experienced a tremendous amount of weight loss when I first started. I was like 170, then started this OMAD, dropped to 150 very quickly. And then
you will kind of go to where your body is saying, this is my ideal weight. This is where I should be. Instead of struggling with your weight, you can just kind of let your body intuitively settle where it needs to be.
You said it, settle, right? So it's like my body kind of settled in that, and it's like you plateau, and at that point, this OMAD journey for me isn't about losing weight anymore. I guess I'm a 145 now. So in the last 6 years, I've only dropped 5 pounds. So it's not about the weight loss for me. It's really about how I'm consuming food and how that energy is being delivered. And what I'm finding is the energy level is consistent, right? So when I was doing gels, when I was doing the carbs, I'd find these huge highs and lows, where it was like, yeah, I'm super strong. Oh, now I'm feeling really down and out, and I guess do a gel, and then I'm really high again. The power output now is very even, and that's not to say that I don't have that extra push when I need it. No, I have that extra push. It's still there. But cool. There's no dip in the energy levels at all, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. So if you're out on a ride and you're a sugar burner and you're taking a gel, you're probably like, I'm tired. I need something. I need more fuel. And so we're not doing that. We're just going, and we don't think about it. We don't think about eating. I'm never hungry. And then mentally you stay sharp. Also, you're not having the brain is the biggest user of sugar. So if you're used to burning sugar and you're out of sugar, then your brain's not going to be as sharp. And then during the day, during our work day, or if we're out on the weekends with our family, we don't have the highs and lows. We don't have those crashes after lunch. You don't need to take a nap, anything like that. I do love napping, but it's unrelated. Trust us. Just trust on that one. There's a lot else that goes into this. There's a lot of other sleep habits and whatnot. We're just talking about nutrition right now, but there's a lot of other things that you're going to want to dial in to be as healthy as possible. In mountain biking and in general, nutrition is such a huge one. What about after a ride? You're one meal a day. So after a ride, do you need to eat right away? They talk about this metabolic window of 1 hour. Have you found that to be important?
It's well, again, I'm not an expert here, and I just want to make that very clear that I'm not an expert. But for me personally, I I'm metabolically flexible at this point. So, on those Sunday rides, we're not eating right directly afterwards. It's usually about an hour, or when we do the trips. That's a really great example. When we go out on those mountain bike trips, sometimes we're driving an hour or two before we even get a meal, so I don't need that meal right away. Like, my body is still burning fat, even after the ride. But I will say that, on those Sunday rides, sometimes I will do 2 meals, and it really doesn't bother me. I'm metabolically flexible enough to be able to adjust to that. Not only can I go, 1 meal or 2 meals, but I'll even skip meals altogether. I'll do a long fast. I'll go 48 hours without eating, and that's a whole nother topic that, I'm sure we'll get into. Cause I think, Dan, you do some 48-hour fasting too, right?
Yeah. So I'll do the 24-hour fast, or an OMAD, which will be 22 to 24. I'll do that once a week or every other week. And then 48-hour fast, I don't do it as often as you do. You're a fasting machine. But I will do it probably about once a quarter or so. And there's a lot of health benefits in fasting. And there's also things that will benefit your riding. If you're looking to get fat adapted, it will certainly add some rocket fuel to getting fat adapted. So yeah, fasting is really cool. That's another subject to get into for sure. Listener, tell us what you're doing. If you've done any fasting, if you've done any low carb, if you're doing supplements and you want to get off of that, rideandlaugh1@gmail. If you're doing supplements and it's working for you, how much are you spending in supplements? I mean, we used to spend drop a ton of money on. And I don't want to single out Hammer Nutrition here, because I think as far as the sugar burning supplement company, I think they're awesome. We just don't want to partake in that anymore, and we don't. We don't do recovery shakes. We don't do pre-ride shakes. We don't do gels. We don't do bars. We don't snack. We eat when we eat, and when we eat a ton. We don't calorie count. We eat as much as we want. I have 2 massive meals a day, and I'm always the same weight. I'm lean, mean, and ready to go, and it feels good. And Sage touched on this a little bit ago. We don't really get sick. I haven't been sick in years, unless I'm falling off my bike. I don't miss time at work. When's the last time you were sick?
Yeah, 7 years. I mean, quite literally. I just don't get sick. It's pretty incredible. I think everyone's experience with this is going to be different, right? That's another thing that I think I want a lot of people to come away with is, like, everyone's different, right? And we are not saying that this is the right way. This is the only way. We're just saying this is another way, and if you are experiencing these like highs and lows while you're riding, maybe you're not experiencing those, but you want to get off supplements. Like, you don't want to have to be spending, I think I was spending like literally hundreds of dollars every month, on gels and these, additives to your drink. Maybe you're tired of paying that, and you want to see if this works. And that's the really neat thing about this is there's no money involved, right? There's nothing to buy. You literally just try this, and by the way, when I say try it, like it does take a commitment. This isn't something where you're like, oh, I just change it for a day. We talked about it earlier. And you got to put at least 2 weeks in to get yourself fat adapted, but then it's going to take some time to get your body adjusted to using fat as energy. So when you first start, you might not be able to go as hard as you used to go, right? Because it's going to take your body time to adjust to burning that fat fast enough. Wow, that was hard to say. Fat fast enough to be able to get to those power numbers again. It will come. Trust me, it will come. But it's going to take a huge amount of commitment. So I just think it's one of those amazing things. Like I said, because there's no money commitment, it's like, it's really on you. Like, do you want to just give it a shot? What's the best that can happen, right?
What's the best that can happen? Absolutely. I mean, so no more bonking, no, steady energy on the trail, not getting sick, recovering faster, and
losing weight,
saving money on supplements, and losing weight, and maybe gaining muscle. Yeah, it sounds pretty good now, but you got to put the work in. That's, you got to put the work in, and there's going to be if you're addicted to sugar, there will be a sugar withdrawal, and it's a real thing. Sage talks about going cold turkey. Maybe you just dial it back. If you got sugar in your coffee now, maybe you just dial it back. And if you're taking in gels on your ride, can you do a little bit less? Can you do your workouts fasted? Can you do your trainer rides fasted? Start your program over. Do a recovery week.
Danny, I actually, you just brought up a really good point about the sugar. And I want to make one more thing clear. And because you and I kind of differ, it may sound like to the listeners that we're very similar. We're actually very different in terms of what we do. It sounds similar because, we're both fat adapted, but there's so many levels to that. You're a lot more stricter with what you consume, when you consume it. I'm not, and I think as you're listening to this, it's really what you're comfortable with and how far do you want to go. For me, I cut out a lot of sugar at first. I went cold turkey, but then I actually reintroduced some sugar back into my diet. Like those Sunday rides, we go out and we'll have a muffin, and I don't chastise myself for having a muffin. It's like, or if I want to go out and have an ice cream with my kids or something, like, I'm not like, nope, I can't do it. That's sugar, blah, blah. No, like I reintroduced some of those things back into my life. Pizza, that was one thing that I cut because I didn't want to do bread. So I cut that for a while. I started reintroducing some of these things in moderation.
I didn't know you were eating pizza. I did not know you were eating pizza. I'm so disappointed. That's 100% true. I don't eat any processed foods. And I'm really careful about that. You are less so. And we've had some conversations where you're like, oh, I just burned it off. And because I'm a nutrition geek and I've been listening to these nutrition podcasts and reading books ever since I found paleo probably 8 or 9 years ago. And just started falling into the rabbit hole of nutrition. And so there's a lot just there's so much variance within the nutritional world. And staying away from seed oils and processed foods and learning about that stuff. And listeners, maybe you already know some of that stuff and have been cleaning up your diet. Garbage in, garbage out. You get a cleaner diet, you're going to have cleaner fuel, you're going to feel better, you're going to ride better, and you're going to have that body that you want and that weight that you want. But we're still humans and we're still alive. And I love to get a muffin after a hard ride, and it's once a week, so it's not going to be a daily thing. But there are huge ranges of how you do this. And you can just get started small just by, if you're interested, rideandlaugh1@gmail. If you're interested, let us know. And I think, and there's a ton of research that you could do out there. In fact, my mountain bike gratitude of the week is this awesome book called The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Athletics. Or performance. It's The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Performance by Finnick and Voley. And it's a really short book. It's on Amazon. I read it and I was just really excited to see that there's some science that backs this up, that you can not necessarily become faster, but you can become just as fast on burning your own body fat as you can on burning all this exogenous, all these outside foods and gels and bars. So I really love that there is science backing this up. The fact that there's no money in it. When we talked about there's very little risk because you're not going to be spending anything to try this, it also means that there's no money in it. So there's very little science that no one's paying for this science to be done because there's no money in it. So it's really just, researchers that are doing it because they're interested, and science is expensive, and the supplement companies, they have a lot of money. And so there's a lot of push the other way. And you hear that a lot. I do the Trainer Road, which is awesome. And I listen to the Trainer Road podcast, Ask a Cycling Coach, and they have a lot of really good tips in there. And I love them talking about the workouts, and it motivates me because those are really hard workouts. But then they're talking about racing. And that's another thing we can get into, but they're talking about racing, and they're talking about the science is conclusive. It's done that sugar makes you the fastest. And so we should be training our guts to our stomachs. We should be training them to eat sugar. And so on a race, you're going to be taking in gels. So when you're on a trainer, you should be taking in gels. And man, that's a lot of sugar. And I know that you're burning it at that time, but it's still going into your gut. It's still affecting your microbiome. It's still affecting your overall health. And if you start getting into this, you're going to see that the health experts out there are going to say, yeah, microbiome is really important. And sugar spikes, not good for you. So there's just so much information. It's so interesting. Ride and Laugh One at Gmail. Comment on the YouTube. Let us know what you want to learn more about. We're talking about becoming fat adapted. That's the main thing. We're talking about eating more whole foods and less processed foods. Yeah. And we're talking about feeling good and appreciating our bodies and having gratitude for our bodies and having gratitude for the food that we eat and having gratitude for this kind of knowledge. If you're listening right now, there's a reason that you're listening. You're in the time and a place that you're getting this information, and maybe you're ready. Maybe you're ready and you can push harder. You can recover faster. So let's love and appreciate our bodies, and let's feel good on the bike, and let's be stoked about riding for a really long time into really, really old age and getting stronger and midlife. That's really cool. And if you're younger, just getting stronger and you're just going to be crushing for a long, long time. I think this nutrition journey is really, really interesting. I know it's polarizing because people have really set in their minds what they want to do. And that's fine if you do. What Sage was explaining before is that just keep an open mind. We've experimented with this. It's really cool. We're just letting you know that there's another way than the sugar burning supplement way.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the best that can happen?
What's the best that can happen? Yeah.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Well, for my gratitude, by the way, before I get into the gratitude, I did want to mention, we talked a lot about fasting, but you're right. The whole just switching over to whole foods, that's a huge change right there. I mean, honestly, we talked a lot about fasting, but you don't need to do fasting. I mean, that's just one facet. That's an awesome facet. If you just made one change and you're like, you know what, let me get would of some of these processes. Let me not go to McDonald's, or whatever it is. Yeah. And you just switch over to like whole foods, like that alone would be a huge difference. But
if you're drinking soda, cut out soda. Like if you're drinking fast food, try cutting out fast food. Sage added pizza back in, but that was after a really long time of probably not eating it. And then he's like, okay, you know what? I can have a slice once in a while and it's not going to destroy me.
Three or four, maybe.
You're killing me.
One slice. Who eats one slice? Like what?
A pie once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. So my gratitude would go to actually Light Show. And I am not sponsored. I wish I was sponsored. I mean, trust me, we would love to be sponsored, but I'm not. These guys, small company, I absolutely love the product. So I do want to plug it because they're awesome. I use Light Show on my rides. It's literally got nothing in it, no flavors. I mean, it tastes like ocean water and lemons. Like it's really just the basic elements of what your body loses. What I love about it is not only will I use it on my rides, but I actually use it on my fast days too. So when I do a 48-hour fast, even on my short fast days, when I'm doing my regular OMAD, if I'm feeling a little bit like sluggish, boom, a little bit of Light Show. It's been absolutely wonderful. So yeah, major gratitude to that company for producing a really cool product.
Yeah, I use the Light Show all the time. I take it. I drink it every day. If you're a fasted athlete or a fat adapted athlete, and you're going to do a fasted ride, an electrolyte drink right before you work out, right before I hop on the trainer, I'll down a bottle of water with it, and it's just a clear liquid. It's literally the minerals that you lose when you sweat. Yeah, and so it has I think it's a nice taste. It's kind of like a salty taste, but it's pleasant once you get used to it. I don't mind it. I think you put too much in your water. I think that's why you don't like it.
Yeah, you know what? It doesn't knock you out of ketosis. It doesn't knock you out of ketosis. That's the great thing about it. So like if you are doing a fast, your body still stays in ketosis, which is awesome. Real quick, the mountain bike tip of the week. Let's go with something that we started the conversation with, which is, Wayne's Trail. One of the things that I loved about that ride was there's this huge gap jump. It's probably about 17 to 19 feet. It's a pretty massive gap. And it wasn't something that we could just do in the flow of the trail. So we all stopped to look at this thing. And so while each person did the jump, the other two were watching. And those two that were watching were also filming. And that's my mountain bike tip. If you can get somebody to film you doing these things, you're going to pick up so much. And I have a whole video on this, but I just found it really handy that day, because one of the things that I noticed was when I was doing this jump, I could actually see my eyes shift down as I'm looking at the takeoff ramp. Then as I'm in the air, I'm looking at the landing. And then before I get to the landing, I'm looking ahead at the trail. And I thought, man, we always talk about, getting your eyes up. It was really neat to see that actually happening. And conversely, when I looked at you and Stick, I was kind of able to point out to you, like, look at where your eyes are pointing, and that's so cool because you can immediately apply that. It's literally on your phone. It's not like in the old days where you had like process film. It's on your phone. You look at it, you apply it to the next jump right then and there. So that's my mountain bike tip. Record video when you can. It's just so handy.
That's a really great tip. There's a really cool trail stage video, an older trail stage video that you did on recording yourself also with a lot of these kind of tips and also recommendations for tripods and whatnot. So check out that video. When you talked about the eyes on that day, and you talked about first of all, I did see that your eyes intuitively shifted up. We talk about intuitive riders versus cerebral riders, and Stick and I, being cerebral, we're like staring at, the lip of the jump, and that's it. And then you're not ready for what's coming up next. You're not processing the next thing on the trail. Your brain needs a little bit of time. And so you showed that to me. And then we went for a ride on Saturday, and I was really focused on getting my eyes up. I was thinking about it because I'm cerebral. I have to put it in my brain. And I was getting my eyes up on Raw, which is a really rocky downhill. And I was like, wow, I'm going so fast. And I was having so much fun. It felt really good. So it's such a basic mountain bike tip, getting your eyes up. We could talk about it more. It's like the first thing you read if you pick up a mountain bike magazine of like tip of the week, is eyes up. But it's a great one. And that was something that you noticed by recording what we look like and then watching it. We also saw on the form of the jump, that I was getting a little bit too far back. I wasn't centered. And so when I hit the jump the next time, it was like more speed and stay centered. And then I started clearing the jump a little bit smoother and feeling better. So that's a really great one. We want to wrap up here just by encouraging everyone to comment and send us an email, rideandlaugh1@gmail.com, talking about any subject that you want to talk about, of course, but also what are you interested in for our next nutrition conversation, or what is your experience? Do we have other fat adapted mountain bikers out there? Because we don't really know anyone else, right, that does this. So I'm sure you're out there. So let us know. Yeah, I've done this. I've messed around with this. And how have you felt when you tried it? And then are you interested in it? Keto, carnivore, low carb, paleo. We have opinions and experience with all of this stuff, including high carb and sugar. We've done that as well. So absolutely send us some comments and some feedback, and we would love to see where everybody is. And if there's anything really interesting that you have in mind, hit us up in the comments. Go ahead and rate and subscribe on your favorite podcast player, and give us a thumbs up and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Give us 5-star review on the podcast player if you liked it. And we appreciate you listening. If you're still listening, you love bikes. We love bikes. We love talking bikes. Get out there, ride, and laugh.
I'll see you, everybody.